Hello, welcome to Failing Forward. I'm your guest, Bethany Fiocchi, founder of Oceanview Marketing. Today's guest is Britney Branch, founder of the Boss Up Agency. What started as a simple newsletter during the pandemic quickly became a full-blown social media agency supporting creators and small businesses. Britney shares how she made the leap into entrepreneurship, scaled a team, and navigated early challenges like cash flow, client management, and burnout. We talk about setting digital boundaries, protecting your mental health, and staying true to your values as your business grows. Okay, let's dive in. So we met at the Women's Business League PGA networking event, right? You were on the panel there, is that right?
Yes, absolutely. My first time there, and I had such a great time.
That was awesome. It was great to hear you talk a little bit about the Boss Up Agency and mental health and entrepreneurship. And I can't wait to get into it today. So let's start. All right. So tell me a little bit about the Boss Up Agency. I see that you founded it in 2020. Can you tell us a little bit about what sparked that business idea?
Mm-hmm. So the Boss Up Agency, I founded it August of 2020. And actually earlier that year, I was still working full-time in beauty. So I was working on the social and influencer marketing side. But I started this newsletter called The Boss Up. And it originally started as a newsletter to help content creators and entrepreneurs really level up their social media game. From there, I was coaching content creators and entrepreneurs on how they can leverage their social media, improve their personal branding, all of that fun stuff. And then by the time August came, I looked up and I was like, wow, like I've coached about like 30 to 40 content creators and entrepreneurs at this point. And it was a lot of like, I wasn't even charging for it. It was like free consultations. I was like wanting to help people at first and just wanting to be a resource to them in addition to my newsletter. And then the pandemic hit, and I was like, you know what? I made a promise to myself for my 28th birthday. I was like, you're going to have to see what entrepreneurship is like. So, are you ready for it? Are you ready to take the leap or no? I decided that I was ready to take the leap and really kicked off my coaching program for the Boss Up, where I continue coaching bosses and helping them leverage their social media. But then I was like, I think I want to take this to the next level and actually start managing social media for small businesses and just brands that I really believe in. That kicked off my social media agency
Ooh,
at that time.
I love
Mhm,
that.
mhm.
Did you always want to be an entrepreneur, or was that something that kicked in a little later?
I did. I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur since I was a little girl. I remember my aunt buying me this like ginormous bead set, and you can make bracelets, necklaces, all of the things. And I would lug that bead set to school. And during recess, I would hire my friends to like make bracelets and necklaces and things like that like we can sell. And so I've always had an entrepreneurial spirit. My parents could definitely attest to that. And so I knew that I wanted to be a founder down the line. I just didn't know what that would look like for me.
I love that story so much because when I was thinking about my story, I've always had a little entrepreneurial spark as well.
Mhm.
And in fourth grade, I learned how to crochet and I started to crochet headbands that I would then sell to my classmates for 50 cents.
So cute. Yes.
So very similar. That's great. I love it. So you did make the choice to go full time right away. What
Mhm.
did the preparation look like? Did you give yourself a runway or was it like a mic drop one day, like I'm out?
You know what? I had been saving that entire year. And for me, I was just like, okay, I'm kind of just saving just to make sure that I have some type of security blanket. But by the time I was ready to take the leap, I looked up and I had saved $10,000. And so I was like, okay, like I think this might be sufficient enough. I don't really know. I talked to like a few other creators and entrepreneurs, and they were like, oh, I saved like 2 months rent or 3 months rent. And so I was trying to make sure that I at least reached that point. Um, but life hit, right? And so when I thought I was ready to take the leap, I quit my full-time job to do so. It was like, okay, break up. move into your new apartment and all the different things. And so I looked up and like that $10,000 was dwindling down very quickly, which is why I knew that I needed to make a pivot in my business because the first month I made $500. And I was like, I don't think this is enough to cut the rent in New Jersey at all. And so I was like, I need to make a change and I need to make it fast because now my back is against the wall and I'm the only person that I have to depend on because I am a one woman show when it comes to the business, right? And so it's like I have to think fast and really move quickly.
And what did you pivot to at that moment?
So at that moment, I pivoted to taking on clients in a social media influencer marketing capacity. And so some of the clients that were my coaching clients, they ended up becoming my retainer clients for the business, right? So the business actually ended up growing word of mouth. I looked up that next year in 2021, and we had a team of 6. We had about 8 to 10 clients. We were really growing rapidly, and so that was amazing for me, especially within like my first year of business.
That is amazing. That's very impressive. What was one of the hardest things at the beginning as you were growing real quickly?
I would say one of the hardest things was trying to figure out how I was going to get clients. Like, yes, I could, rely on word of mouth, but also I was like, oh, how do I leverage email newsletters? Like, how do I know how to work on like the finances within my business? Like, how do I keep up with what's going on? I think a lot of conversation is around starting a business, but I feel like more of the conversation needs to be around maintaining a business and the ins and outs that go along with that because you could easily get lost in the shuffle if you're not maintaining a healthy business.
Totally. I very much agree. And I've been having a lot of conversations with small business owners recently.
Mhm.
And that's a common theme I've been hearing is both that there's not enough information or guidance out there for how to
Mhm.
take those next steps in your business. So that's such an important point. It's actually something that I love doing for people. I've been doing some strategy sessions recently. And one of my
Mm.
absolute favorite things is to provide that clarity, dig deep with
Yes.
people, understand what they love doing, what they don't love doing, and kind of tailoring everything that they're doing in that moment for the next 3 months, 6 months, whatever that is, to get them
Mhm.
to a goal. Because I find that business owners kind of get overwhelmed. Like, did you ever feel like that? Like, oh my gosh, I need to be everywhere. I have to be doing this thing on LinkedIn and then this thing over here on Instagram and
Mhm.
then this thing in networking. Like, how did you kind of
Yes.
cut through the noise with all of that?
I feel like during that period, I was just like, let me just stay in my lane and do what I know how to do best. And really just focus on my zone of genius, right? Like, what is my zone of genius? I know that I'm really good at curating the content to get the word out about what I'm doing for my business. I know that I might not be as good at maybe like editing a YouTube video. So let me outsource that and get on Upwork and find someone who could really do that for me. Or I know that, I don't really have the capacity to really like be in and out with the finances day in and day out. So let me find a really great accountant and really just allow them to hone in on that. And so it was for me like figuring out, okay, what are the things that I really strive at and what are the things that, if I don't go seek the help, it's going to fall through the cracks. And so figuring that out really helped me kind of like get my business to where it needed to be during that time.
That's great. That actually brings us perfectly into my question about failures, which is the signature question of failing forward. You mentioned a couple of the topics already, but tell us a little bit about value alignment and what you may have learned along the way. I know you had
Mhm.
mentioned that you maybe had some clients at the beginning and that weren't fully aligned with you and your business values. Can you tell us a little bit about that learning?
Absolutely. In the beginning, I was like, okay, like I need clients. So I, did everything I could to maintain some of the clients that I had. But that also meant that I probably took on clients that I knew weren't in full alignment with me, but I just tried to make it work, especially for the business. And so I remember having a few clients where it was always this consistent like back and forth. They weren't, we weren't aligned on the vision, and they weren't really clear on what they wanted or needed out of their business for us to align on anything to move forward. And so, really dissolving those partnerships before they kind of, stretched longer than they needed to be was hard decisions because that meant, okay, maybe sometimes we dissolve a partnership, but we don't have another client lined up to take that place right now. Like, how are we going to bounce back? Or I remember one time we had to dissolve two partnerships at the same time. And I remember thinking like, oh my goodness, like, how are we going to bounce back from this? That's a good chunk of like what we're bringing in. And I really just had to trust myself and trust my team that either way we're making the right decision and things will fall into alignment and we will continue to attract the ideal clients that we needed. And I want to say maybe like a month afterwards, my friend actually connected me with a brand who was looking for someone to run social for them. And so it all worked out. And when you think about it, it always works out. But you have to stay true to yourself and who you are, because when you don't do that, that's when things get confused in your business. And you definitely don't want to add confusion for yourself or for the people that are working with you.
Agreed. Yes, very important. And that's something I've learned along the way as well.
Mhm.
I think especially when you're first starting out, you're just like, all the clients, come on, anyone, I
Yes.
can help you. And then you have to kind of start to put a little bit more intentionality around attracting
Mhm.
the right people. Can you speak to that actually? What were some things that you did after that learning to attract the right clients that were aligned with your values and someone that you really felt was the right fit for your business?
Oh my goodness. I really restructured what the onboarding process looked like when we're signing on a new client. So I was like, okay, I need to restructure what the questionnaire is because I need to understand like at what level are you at in your business, and also just understand more about the person that I will be working with or that the team will be working with. And so I realized that, maybe the strong suit for us isn't necessarily to work with brands who are still trying to figure it out. We wanted to work with brands who, had some type of foundation to lie on so that we were able to move accordingly. And so restructuring that questionnaire, really hopping on the phone, learning about the client, learning about their business, and taking a solid approach when it came to actually what we were going to propose to them, what the strategy was going to be, and making sure that we were aligned in those phases before moving forward. It helped me think differently about how to work on the onboarding beginning stages, so that you're not going through the motions and then figuring out in like month 3, like, oh, wait, like we're still not even aligned on a strategy. So therefore, we can't even do the work that we were fully hired to do.
Right. That's really
Mhm.
important. I like that tip a lot. That's definitely something that can help along the way and make it more smooth for sure.
Yes,
Awesome.
absolutely.
Yeah. And then as you were scaling, can you tell us a little bit about your experience with scaling your business? I know you mentioned that a little earlier in the conversation, but can you go into a little more detail about some things you learned during the scaling process?
Mhm. Scaling was exciting. It was very exciting to just see like this thing that you just like developed really grow arms and have like different people who are now involved in the processes and see them take ownership in different things. So it was a very exciting time. I started off with my first hire who actually started off as an intern with me, and then she, became like our marketing manager. And so she was managing a lot of the different clients that we had and really just allowing her to own and like manage her own little team from that point too. So we had her, and then we had a marketing assistant, and then we had freelance contractors, so graphic designers, we had interns and things like that. And so I looked up and we had like a team of 6, and a team of 6 great, amazing women. Being able to make an impact on them during that time was just so important for me because it was a lot of their first time engaging in like what a work life or what corporate life or startup life could look like. And so I really wanted to make sure that I made this experience really great for them, right? Which is a pressure in itself when you think about it. But in the scaling, in the excitement, I realized, okay, the more clients that we have, the more I'm going to have to continue to scale. Because for me, I know that there's a lot of like work culture where a lot of people are wearing multiple hats in their role, right? And I really wanted to avoid my team being burned out. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to have to keep continuing to grow the team and adding more people so that no one feels like they have so much work on their plate. And I looked up and I was just like, wow, like we're spending an absorbent amount on contractors. Um, and this is obviously like the biggest operating cost within the business. Like, I need to take a step back and reestablish what that looks like because if we keep going at this rate, it's not going to be sustainable to upkeep, which I feel like it's probably a lot of what a lot of agencies come to head on is thinking like, okay, how am I going to um, take a step back here and really think about the growth of the agency? And so when I did that, a whole another world opened up for me, which we'll definitely talk about. But yeah, scaling is exciting, but also I think being aware of like your margins and how things are looking and the money that you're bringing in, and also pricing yourself accordingly are all things that, you have to take a closer look at before you add an additional body to your business.
Hmm. I know that's one thing I've been thinking about a lot lately as I build up the foundations of my business as well. Where did you talk to other entrepreneurs to learn more about their margins, or like where did you find benchmarks to say, this is what an ideal margin looks like in my business? Or was it just through the learning process and actually doing it that you learned
Mhm.
what the right thing was for your business?
It was honestly just through the learning process because I also learned through talking with other entrepreneurs that they might be hiring different positions for different reasons, right? And so when it came to me scaling back in my business, I was like, okay, we probably didn't need this as quickly as I thought we needed it. Or maybe, we could have done this instead of hiring the X. And so it was really establishing what works for me. Um, and in that learning, I realized that, a lot of the things that I thought were urgent at that time weren't necessarily as urgent as I thought they were.
Hmm. Yeah, and that's a learning process that entrepreneurs have. I know scaling can definitely be challenging for many. So thank you for sharing that. All right,
Mhm.
let's talk about one more topic in terms of failures and learnings. So,
Mhm.
as an entrepreneur, time can get away from us if we let it, especially in the digital world that we live in, where you can answer and send emails at any time of
Mm,
day.
mm.
Do you ever encounter any challenges around setting boundaries on your time and your, resources and stuff?
Absolutely. And as a recovering people pleaser, I, really felt like I had to be there for my clients, even my teams, like beck and call. So I, would get up in the morning, checking Slack, checking my emails, answering anything. But then also after hours, I would be also answering those emails as well too, and trying to troubleshoot things for my clients. Even, it kind of like morphed into text message, clients texting about different ideas that they have. And I was just like, I can't handle all of this. Um, but it wasn't until I actually came across a client who disclosed to our team her digital boundaries. She was like, I have digital boundaries around X, I'm getting married, I'm doing this and that, blah, blah, blah. And after these, work hours, it's my time with my partner. And I was just like, wow, like a client telling me about their digital boundaries. I need to take note. And so from that point, I got more firm with the boundaries that I was setting, especially the digital boundaries. And I was just like, okay, any time before 9 a.m. is truly my time. And it's my time to prioritize movement, prioritize journaling, meditation, you know, maybe even prioritize catching up on some of my readings that I want to do. But it was like I set those boundaries within the workplace, but then I also set those boundaries with my family and friends. Like Unless something is happening, do not call me before 9 AM. Um, Let me have that time to myself because once I enter the workday, I'm devoting all my time to someone else or something else. And so I just wanna make sure that I fill my cup up first before I kind of, start the day with it depleted. And the same thing went for weekends. I stopped taking meetings and things on the weekend so I can fully enjoy them, and enjoy my life, right? And so setting those boundaries did so much for me and my mental health, and it allowed me to take the pressure off. And I don't think some people realize this, but when you set those boundaries, it's a trickle down effect for your team, right? And so if you create this culture where everyone's working around the clock, and I remember one of the girls on my team, she was like, I haven't eaten yet today. And I'm just like, well, why haven't you eaten yet? Like you have to eat. So you can unknowingly like create this culture that's really toxic around like work and boundaries or work and prioritizing self. And so I was just like, let me be the example and lead. Um, and it's gonna start with setting boundaries and making sure that people have time for themselves.
I love that. And that's something that I don't think always existed in the workplace in terms of
Mhm.
mentality because, I graduated from college in 2007. And so I was in the beginning of my career in startups and corporate. And, there was this feeling and this saying of, work hard, play hard, right? And it
Absolutely.
was not the dawn of the internet necessarily, but it was when you were having instant messaging all the time and
Mhm.
email, and we started to have smartphones. And I'm aging myself so badly right now, but it was really like all of a sudden people were encouraged to answer emails at any time,
Mhm.
and especially in startup world, especially in tech startup world, you know oh, there's a release. Oh, and now it's broken. And now we have to all kind of figure out what's going on. And actually met my husband at that one of those startups, and he was
Mhm.
on, he's an engineer. He was so burnt out, and, they're always on call, having to check things. If a cart, on the site breaks, something like that, you have to go, go, go. But I love that recently there is a lot more talk about balance, especially in entrepreneurship and mental health. And so that brings me to my question for you, because I know you focus a lot and care a lot about mental health for entrepreneurs. Can you give us your two best tips for mental health for busy entrepreneurs?
Mhm. Yes, I would definitely say one of my tips is to just set those boundaries, right? So carve out some time during the day that's specifically for you and whatever it is that you love to do. So I kind of think about it in three buckets. So I'm like, what can I do for my mind? What can I do for my body and for my soul? And I think that sometimes we get on social media and it feels like you have to have this long, extensive morning routine or evening routine for it to be of standard to the societal standard. But if you could just pour into one of those buckets, whether it's like reading a few pages of your book or working out for like 15 minutes or going on a walk, getting some sunlight, like do those things so that you can really fill your cup. Another thing that I would say is don't be afraid to say no. So if something does not align with you, even if you're getting like unsolicited advice from family and friends about what you need to be doing in your business, which comes very often, right? Um, don't be afraid to say no and kind of like push back kindly, right? My therapist always talks about like there are ways to say things in a kind way. And so really just setting those boundaries there could do a lot for you as well and your mental health.
Yes, I love that advice. It's important. I've been trying. So I have two young kids, a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old, a husband, a full-time job during the day, side business at, after hours. And it has been very challenging as someone who used to be very much in control of my schedule and scheduling in those types of rest moments and, filling my cup moments to not have as much control. But I've found that scheduling stuff, literally putting it on the family calendar and inviting my husband to it so he knows this is like gym time for me has been so important, and finding little moments of routine. I've been doing some subliminal audios, like some light self-hypnosis audios and stuff. And I was something that I never thought that I would be into, but I've just found it to be so resting, and I look forward to it. My nervous system looks forward to that relaxation. And it's 15 or 20 minutes that I can fit in right before bed. So I love your advice about kind of like putting it, scheduling that in, even if it is just 15 minutes or something like that. That's great. All right. The last question that I have, a little fun thing here, is this or that. So first question, dog or cat?
Definitely a dog person.
Okay, I heard you say it when we were chatting before we started recording that you have a dog.
Yes.
What kind of dog?
So he is a lab and a pit mix. He is a big brown-eyed dog, and he can't help but to love him.
Oh, adorable. I also am a dog person.
Oh.
Okay, mountain or ocean?
Ooh, I'm gonna have to say ocean. Even though the ocean can be a little scary at times, there's something about water that's just super calming. So I'm gonna have to say ocean.
Agreed. We're on the same page because I named my business Oceanview Marketing.
Yes.
I love the ocean as well. All right, cocktail or mocktail?
I think I'm slowly becoming a mocktail girl. Never thought I would see it, but I think I'm in between, if I can be in between.
Yep, of course. All right, bacon or sausage?
Ooh, I'm gonna have to go with sausage.
Sausage. Yep.
Yes.
All right, cardio or strength?
Oh, cardio has been making me feel refreshed and also empowered in a way. So I'm gonna go with cardio.
There you go. All right, high heels or sneakers?
Ooh, sneakers.
TikTok or Instagram?
I'm gonna go with TikTok. TikTok gives me like the belly laughs that I need at the end of the day. And so I think I'm gonna go with TikTok.
And you have quite a few followers on TikTok, right?
I do.
Right.
Very thankful for my community there.
80,000. I think that's such
Yeah.
a fabulous number that I saw on your when we were chatting earlier. So yeah, just had to call that out. And final question: cow milk or almond milk?
Ooh. What was the first one?
Cow milk.
Oh, I'm gonna go with almond milk.
Okay. And I'm cheating a little bit on that because I saw on Instagram recently that you made your own almond milk. And so I have
Yes.
to ask you how you did that because it looked so good.
Oh my goodness, that was a process. That was a process in itself. I have not done it again, but I will soon.
Awesome. Well, you'll have to share the recipe. Well, this was so much fun. Thank you so much for joining us today, Britney. You had so many great insights and things to share, and it was great learning more about your journey to scale up and build the Boss Up agency. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, Bethany.